Hey guys, it's me, the Lit Teacher, and today I want to talk to you about the CAA Literacy Co-requisite, specifically the writing one. So you'll know that there are two literacy co-requisites that students in New Zealand are having to sit at the moment. There's a reading one, which I have a video on if you want to check that out, and there's the writing one. And today I want to talk about the writing one and specifically look at how it is marked, because there's a lot of mystery around this, and I'm going to try and alleviate some of that mystery for you today. So we'll talk a little bit about the assessment itself. We'll look back at some of the previous papers just to talk about the kinds of texts students have been asked to write in this writing co-requisite. Then I will break down the mark scheme for you in as much detail as I can bear to do, and then I'll offer you some pieces of advice, just general tips from my perspective as an English teacher. Okay, so let's get into the assessment itself. There are 3 questions, okay? Question 1, question 2, question 3. Now, question 1 and question 2 are where you're doing all the writing. Question 3 is multi-choice. I'll talk about that in a second. Question 1 is asking you to write 150 to 250 words based on a prompt. And the prompt is essentially asking you to write a certain kind of text for a certain audience, okay? And we'll talk about what purpose and audience means, because that's a really important aspect of this. So question 1's asking for 150 to 250 words. Question 2 is kind of asking for the same thing, but it's a longer piece. It will be a different text type, written for a different audience. They're looking for 250 to 350 words for question 2. Now, the type of writing that you may be asked to do here can vary. We'll look at what we've seen in the past shortly, but it could be things like magazine articles, Pānui newsletters, emails, social media posts. There can be a bit of a variety of different things that you are asked to write. Now, the prompts, the things that you are given, the tasks essentially, require you to write for different audiences. So this is like different people or groups. For instance, one asked for students to write a letter to their local council. Another one asked to write an article for a school community. These are the kinds of things that we've seen in the past in terms of the people or groups, the audiences that students are asked to write for. And the purposes are the reasons or the aims that you are writing. So it could be, for instance, you're writing to your local council to try and convince them to support a volunteer project that you have. Or it could be that you're writing for your peers at school to try and persuade them that, like, I don't know, school uniforms should be banned or something like that. Now, you may need to write in a very formal way. This is called register. So you may need to write in a formal register. This is serious, using kind of more fancy words, for want of a better expression. The kinds of words that you would use if you were talking to, like, I don't know, the headmaster of your school or something. And in other instances, you may be able to write in a less formal way, i.e. more casual language, more kind of everyday use of words like you might say to your friends or teachers at school on a more casual basis. It really depends on the type of text you're being asked to write and who you're writing for. Now, question 3, as I mentioned earlier, is 8 multi-choice questions. And these essentially test you on your knowledge of punctuation and vocabulary. So it may ask you to read a sentence and say where some commas should go. Or it may ask you to read a sentence and offer some advice on what word would best fit into the middle of that sentence. So that's a slightly more simple question, and I'm really going to be focusing in this video on question 1 and question 2, because this is where you're doing all the writing. This is kind of where all the really heavy lifting is. Okay, so let's just look back very briefly at the kinds of text students have been asked to write. This is going to help you if you're going to do the CAA Literacy Writing Co-requisites soon, because you'll be able to go, oh, okay, so these are the kinds of things maybe I can expect to see. So for question 1, this is the shorter one. This is the 150 to 250 words thing. We've seen, and each bullet point is a separate paper. Remember that there are 2 assessments per year. There are actually several events that happen each year, and each one's slightly different, a different assessment paper, if you will. So each one's asking a different task and a different piece of writing. So what have we seen? Well, in 2023, we saw for question 1 a social media post and an email about volunteering. 2024 for question 1, an email of thanks to somebody or a description of an experience. And 2025, most recently, we've seen an email to a careers advisor or an email about an event. For question 2, which is the longer form one, this is the 250 to 350 words piece. A little bit more consistency here. So in the first year, 2023, there was an awards nomination letter where you're nominating somebody for an award. Then there was an article for a school magazine. And since then, we've seen more articles, basically. Articles essentially for community or school websites seem to be the thing that are popping up for question 2 most recently. So this just gives you at a glance the text types we've seen, and as I said, it may help you be more prepared for the type of thing you can expect when you actually sit this assessment yourself. So how is it marked? This is a big question everybody's probably asking. Well, there are 4 aspects. I'm going to break each one down for you shortly. So there is content, there is structure and organization, language choices, and accuracy. And accuracy is the big one that my guys are struggling with, but we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. So this is the mark scheme, and you're probably like freaking out right now seeing all these boxes with fancy NZQA jargony words in them. But essentially how it works is down the left you can see in the writing rubric, there are in the white boxes the 4 aspects I just ran through, so content, structure, language choice, blah, blah, blah. And then in the colored boxes moving across the rubric, you can see the different levels. So if you're in the gray, light red, or yellow, that means you are below standard. If you're in the light green or green, that means you're at standard. In other words, you have passed the co-requisite. Now you need to be in the light green or green for all 4 of those aspects to pass. If you are in the green for 3 of them and then the yellow for 1, I'm sorry, you're going to have to try again the next time. So each one is as important as the other. So let's break these down a little bit further. Okay, content. What does content mean? Well, according to the assessment, it is the quality of ideas, information, and their development. The focus is on what is said rather than how it is said. So what does this actually mean in plain language? Well, it's basically like, how good are your ideas? Are the ideas in your writing relevant? Do they suit what you've been asked to write about? Are you thinking about the purpose of what you've been asked to write and the audience that you're writing for? So in other words, if it is a letter trying to convince a counselor that they should spend money on building a skate park or something like that, how good are the reasons that you're providing? You know, how convincing is it? How good are the ideas? Does the counselor want to give money towards that skate park because you've told them some really important stuff? Are your ideas solid or are they simplistic? Are you developing those ideas? So if you kind of raise an idea, do you extend on it a bit? Tell us a little bit more about it. And are you telling us more with evidence? Okay, so this is super important if the type of writing you are doing is trying to persuade somebody to believe in something that you are advocating for. You're going to need to back that up with reasons, evidence. It's not enough to just say something is true. You got to provide the reasons why. So that's what content is. It's the ideas essentially. Okay, and you can see in the below standard that basically a lack of ideas or a lack of detailed ideas or simplistic ideas that are not developed are causing issues for people. Whereas in the green boxes, you can see that the ideas show some development. That means you've probably spent several sentences explaining and expanding on them. And certainly in the strong evidence criteria, the dark green box there, all of your ideas are kind of working together to build towards a sort of grand purpose across your piece of writing. So that's content. Okay, so next is structure and organization. What does this mean? Okay, well, according to the standard, it is the overall flow of ideas across the text as a whole. For example, the connection and coherence. What does this mean in plain language? Does your writing have structure? Does it have a clear beginning, middle, and end? Okay, all good pieces of writing usually do. Are you writing in paragraphs and sentences? Okay, so is the nuts and bolts of your writing actually well structured? Okay, and if you're writing in paragraphs, which is great, because if you're just writing a massive blob of text with no paragraphing, you're probably going to find yourself in that light red or yellow box here. But if you're writing in paragraphs, the next question is, do your paragraphs have structure? So are you using something like Peel or Teal or whatever paragraph structure your teacher has taught you at school? And last but not least is, do the things that you're writing connect, or does it all feel a bit random? And by random, I mean, is it kind of like a bit jumbled up here? Do you talk about something in one part and then kind of like talk about something else and then go back to that one thing? Are the ideas kind of a little bit scattered around the writing? That means it doesn't have structure, it doesn't have organization. That means you're probably not nailing it on this one here. So that's structure and organization. Okay. In the below standard sections there, basically the structure you've used for the text type is inappropriate. So in other words, you haven't, if you're writing a letter, say, you haven't used the structure of a letter, which usually starts off with, the address, to whom it may concern, I am writing to you because blah, 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 yours sincerely. So are you using the appropriate text structure for the type of writing you're being asked to do? And I guess in the weak evidence box, maybe you are, but it's kind of inconsistent, or as a marker, I'm having to fill in some of the gaps there because you're not really doing it for me. When you're getting into the green area here, it's basically saying that your writing is logical, that it has that clear beginning, middle, and end that it needs to have, that it fits the kind of writing that we're used to seeing for a letter or an article. It's using that structure. And the paragraphing and stuff like that is really on point as well. Okay, so that's structure and organization. Third one is language choices. So this is the appropriateness for purpose and audience, e.g. the sentence types and variety, the word choice, and language features. What does that mean? Does your writing suit the purpose and the audience? So are you essentially meeting the requirements of the prompt you've been given? Okay, does it suit that prompt? Are you writing in a formal or informal register when appropriate? So in other words, if you're writing a letter, say, to the headmaster thanking them for your time at school, you're going to want to write in a formal register there. That's not going to be an informal thing where you're like, cheer, headmaster bro, like, it was so sweet as going to school with you, cuz. That's probably like not going to fly. You need to be writing in a more formal register there. So basically, are the language choices that you're making appropriate? That also applies to just specific words, but also just more generally the language and the whole overall feel of the piece as well. I would say here, generally speaking, if you're not sure whether you should be writing formally, probably you should be writing formally. I would say it's probably not worth the risk writing in a casual, informal manner, because chances are if it's a letter or an article, a formal register is going to help you out there. Last bullet point in terms of what does it mean is like, is there variety in your language here? Or is your writing becoming kind of repetitive? So do you kind of fall back on similar words or phrases or sentence structures? Are you using lots of short sentences over and over again to the point that it's, kind of boring? Or is there a real nice variety in the vocabulary you're using, the sentence structures, the sentence length, stuff like that? If you're below standard here in the red or the yellow boxes, it's basically meaning like you're not writing appropriately for what you've been asked to do. So this would be like my example where you've written very casually for a letter to a headmaster or something like that. Or maybe in the weak evidence box, you're using some kind of appropriate vocabulary and stuff like that, but it's probably inconsistent and your writing is probably lacking variety. It's becoming uninteresting, it's inconsistent. To get into the green boxes, you're using really effective vocabulary, it's appropriate, the tone of what you're saying is appropriate. You're formal when you need to be formal. You're maybe informal when that's appropriate as well. And there's some really good variety in your sentence types, in the vocabulary you're using, and just the language choices in general. And it's all kind of working together to make your piece of writing effective. Okay, so that's language choices. Deep breath. Accuracy. Now, accuracy. This is my great foe, or rather it is the great foe of many of the students who have not passed the CAA co-requisite at my school. This is just mistakes. Are you making too many mistakes? Okay, this is spelling, punctuation, and grammar, people. Are you making lots of mistakes here? Is your spelling okay? Is your punctuation, commas, full stops, question marks, is that alright? Is the grammar okay? Do the sentences read well? Does your writing make sense, essentially? And have you edited and revised your work with care to make sure that it does? Accuracy is kind of the simplest one. You probably know exactly what it means. It's, like I said, mistakes. Minimizing mistakes is how you nail this one. So if you're in the red or the yellow, it's because it's probably just too many mistakes, okay? Maybe your spelling's wrong. Maybe your punctuation's a bit all over the place. Maybe you've got lowercase letters when you needed capital letters. And all of that stuff's kind of stacking up, and it's making your writing look sloppy, okay? When you're getting into the green boxes, it's because your writing is a bit more polished, okay? You've probably got your capital letters, your full stops, you got your question marks where there needs to be a question mark, you're spelling words correctly, all of that stuff's working to mean that your writing is clear, it's easy to read, it makes sense, okay? You can be doing okay in the yellow box, but if I'm having to sort of stop and figure out what a word is because you've nearly spelled it right but not quite, then that's interfering with the text, and it's probably meaning that it's requiring work from me, which is what's causing you to be in the yellow box as opposed to the green one. This is just where that proofreading stuff comes in super handy. If you have a process for doing this, as I'm going to advise shortly, you're probably going to nail this one. But accuracy is by far the one that's been causing issues for students at my school, and a lot of people having to go back and just polish up their spelling, punctuation, and grammar. One little piece of advice I'll just give you while I'm on this slide, I may as well, is it's probably a good idea in some instances to kind of stay in your lane when it comes to word choice. And this doesn't mean that you use lots of like boring and repetitive language, but it maybe does mean don't reach for a word you don't really know how to spell or even understand, because it's probably going to introduce mistakes into your writing. Like if you want to use the word insufficient, but you don't know how to spell insufficient, let alone what insufficient actually means, then you probably shouldn't use the word insufficient. You should just use a word that you do know the meaning of and you do know how to spell, because that's going to help you out more. Okay, so what is my general advice here? Basically, if you want to pass this, I think you need to practice. You need to go back to past papers, you need to look at them, and you need to have a go at those past papers. You should be asking your teacher for opportunities to do this. And you should be giving your practice responses to your teacher and asking them to mark against this criteria. Because if you can figure out where you are struggling, then that's half the battle, and you're going to know what to work on, how to improve, and how to get across the line. It might be that when your teacher marks a piece of your writing, they go, hey, you're actually really good with ideas, structure, language choices, but yeah, hey, guess what? It's the accuracy that's causing you issues. That's going to save you a lot of time in preparation if you can just target the areas where you're struggling. Stick to the word counts. I feel like this is really important. If the word count is 150 to 250 words, then write 150 to 250 words. Do not write 100 words. You're probably not going to pass. And yeah, maybe writing 400 words would still allow you to pass, but you're going to introduce a lot more potential for your writing to lose control, to maybe bring more mistakes into the writing, and that could cause you problems too. So it is definitely a quality over quantity thing. It's a kind of less is more approach. If it's 150 to 250 words, write 150 to 250 words. If it's 250 to 350 words, write 250 to 350 words. You should be able to track this in the assessment. I believe there's a live word count as you're writing that you can follow as you go. Take your time. This assessment's unique. You can spend time on it. You can sit in the assessment for quite a long time before you have to leave, so you might as well take your time. This means you should probably sit down and plan your response. And yeah, as I've said to quite a lot of students, I know this is called the writing co-requisite, but there's actually a lot of reading involved here, and you're going to have to read and understand what you're being asked to do in order to kind of meet the requirements of the task itself. So really take the time to read those prompts, figure out what the purpose of the writing is, figure out who the audience is, and then plan out a response. If you plan out what you're going to write, your structure and organization is probably going to be way better too. And last but not least is you really need to develop a proofreading and editing process. I have been in this assessment and I've watched students press submit on work that they've literally just put the final full stop on, or in some cases haven't put the final full stop on, they've just hit submit anyway. And I really just said to myself, wow, I wish you had just read that 1, 2, 3 times, because you probably would have picked up a bunch of mistakes. And yeah, when the results come back and those students haven't got across the line and they have to do it again, it's usually because they didn't proofread and edit their work. So as I said, you have the time, you might as well do it. Proofread and edit, people. Take the time, get it right. As they say in building, what is it, like measure twice, cut once? I don't know. Proofread 3 times, press submit once, sit the CAA once. Kind of makes sense to me. Anyway, that is my video on the CAA Literacy Writing Co-requisite. I hope that's helped you maybe just take away some of the mystery of how it's marked. Good luck if you're sitting this paper. I hope you get across the line and you never have to do it ever again. That would be the best case scenario for all of you. If you like what I'm doing here at the Lit Teacher channel, please feel free to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment if you have any questions or you want me to do any videos on other stuff. I will do a video breaking down the assessment report for this because I think that's got some really useful advice too. And yeah, until next time, from my windy little town here, I'm not sure if you can hear that on the microphone, I will say ka kite to you, and yeah, up the waz.